Well, good afternoon, friends and newcomers to our Friday special conversations with special people. I'm so happy to introduce our very special guest and friend, too, because April Grier has been here a few times, and each time she's wonderful. I love her. And she was kind enough to change dates with John Wargacki for today because who unfortunately was unable to speak because he had meetings at the university. And I think his job should have come first before us. But in any case, I'm so happy, April, that you were able to change with him. Um, April is professor of Africana Studies at Rutgers University, as well as being a jazz, would you say the word aficionado? How do you say that word?
Aficionado? Yeah,
Yes,
I could call myself an aficionado.
I think you are. You're an ardent supporter of jazz. I understand the word, I just can't say it. But anyway, April first spoke here on February 21st, 2019, and then last January 23rd of last year on Jazz for Lovers. Today's talk will be on the topic Jazz Divas. She's terrific and has given all of us wonderful insight into the world of jazz. And today will be fascinating to hear about the great jazz singers who have given us so much pleasure and joy throughout the years with their wonderful talent. So now, please let's give a very warm welcome applause to our special friend, April Grier. Thank you, April.
Thank you. Thank you, Phyllis. Good afternoon. And thank you, Phyllis, South Orange Public Library, for inviting me back to present today. I'm so excited as always. It's always a pleasure, to share my stories and my love and passion for jazz with you all because you're such an amazing audience. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I always feel so warm and welcomed. And the stories that you all share with me, I feel like I've learned just as much, hopefully, as you get from me every time we, exchange. So if I could, I'm going to need to share my screen, if that's okay, because I've created a presentation for you guys today.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And so if you just give me a moment to bring everything up.
Michael is fabulous. We couldn't do it without Michael.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Everyone needs a good audio visual AMV. Is that what you call it? What's the word? Audio visual person?
Expert.
Exactly.
Let's just say
a good one. All right, so let's see if this works. There we go. Can you guys all see that?
Most are on the phone, by the way. So please remember that.
I know that. Okay, so anyway, what I've got, I'll make sure that I try to explain this to everyone then who are on the phone. So today's presentation is all about jazz divas. And now you may ask, we all think we have an idea of what a diva is. And most of the time when we talk about divas, we mean it, unfortunately, in the more not so nice, connotation, like she's difficult to work with, or she thinks she's better than she is, this and that. But really a true diva is a celebrated female singer, a woman with outstanding talent, in a world, usually it really homes from the world of opera, but it has extended since its origins to include theater, cinema, and popular music. And of course, popular music today that we're talking about is jazz. So I have a presentation, and the first image I have up here are some of the most popular divas that come to mind. And if you guys want to chime in and just name some, I bet you'll hit on some of the pictures I have here. So when you think of jazz divas, somebody just shout out. Who are some of the women you think of in jazz?
Ella Fitzgerald.
Ella is on here, absolutely. Who else?
Anita Day.
Betty Carter, Anita O'Day, yes. Who else? Who is our Newark hometown diva extraordinaire, scat singer?
Is it Sarah Vaughan?
Yes.
Sarah Vaughan, absolutely, absolutely. So these are all like when we think of celebrated women in jazz, we immediately recall their names, and we could talk about these women, you know, forever, and we will talk about these women forever. They are just that great. But today I'm choosing to focus on the many singers that they inspired. So today I want to focus on the jazz, not the jazz divas of the old days, but the new jazz divas, so to speak. So I want to talk about a new generation of jazz divas. And so I've included in this presentation videos, and you will be able to hear, so those who are joined by phone, it's going to be just as enjoyable. But we're focusing today on Camille Thurman, Veronica Swift, Brianna Thomas, and Jasmine Horn. Now, they're all incredibly talented singers, instrumentalists, composers, educators. They've all picked up the torch that Sarah Vaughan and Betty Carter and Anita O'Day and Ella Fitzgerald, you know, passed on to them. They picked up this torch and they're carrying this jazz tradition forward. And I want to share a little bit about these gifted performers with you today through these videos that highlight their talent and provide a little biographical information to them. So at the end, hopefully we'll leave a little bit of time for us to discuss this new generation of jazz divas and where we see them heading in the future, because I'm super excited to present them to you today. How many of you have heard of these women? Camille Thurman. Anyone familiar with Camille Thurman?
No.
No.
Oh, awesome. So let me let Camille tell you about who she is, but just to give you a little background, Camille Thurman is one of the first female instrumentalists to have been featured or played for an entire season with Jazz at Lincoln Center. And we know Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra is known forever as being like the good old boys network. You know, they never, until only in recent years, did they have women as part of the band, not featured performing artists, but actually part of the jazz orchestra. Well, Camille broke that barrier, and she was the first to tour with the group for an entire season. And now I don't know if she's still considered a regular band member of the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, but she is certainly holding her own. So, but not only is she a saxophonist, she's also a vocalist. So here's a little video of her telling you who she is.
My earliest memory of music, I'll never forget. My mother took me to Brooklyn, New York. They had an African Street Festival, and I was about 4 years old, and Noel Pointer was playing with a blue violin. It was just incredible watching him. It just seemed to be so cool and exciting to do. That's how I fell in love with the music. I went to Colorado H. LaGuardia High School of Music and Performing Arts in New York City. This school is, well, it was known to be the Fame School. There was a television show in the 80s called Fame with Debbie Allen. It was basically the school where you walk in and kids dancing on the lunch tables and people are jamming in the hallways. In reality, it wasn't really like that. It was kind of interesting because there were some egos and there was sexism, and there was also some bullying intertwined with the sexism. When you're a 14, 15-year-old girl playing an instrument that's not typically an instrument as you see women playing, it can be challenging socially, but then also within the band setting, it can be kind of an interesting dynamic. There were only 4 of us young women, and for us girls, we had to make a pact with each other to support and love each other despite how we were treated. My top musical influences are Dexter Gordon and Sarah Vaughan. My first influence was Dexter Gordon. Dexter Gordon, to me, was one of the most incredible saxophonists of all time. he was my biggest inspiration and role model. And he helped me develop that confidence that I needed, so that whenever I was in those situations of maybe being the only girl, I knew that didn't even matter, because at the end of the day, what mattered was what was coming out of my instrument and whether or not I could stand on my own 2 feet and play. Sarah Vaughan, otherwise known as the Divine One, had a voice of silk. I used to have a thing where I would come home after school and I'd take my hairbrush, I'd put my headphones on, turn up the volume, because you could hear the reverb and listening to the record. And I would pretend that I was in the concert hall like her singing. But she was one of my biggest influences and my hero, because she was not only a vocalist, she was also an instrumentalist. I was just like, man, if I could just get a snippet of that kind of freedom and control and grace and sophistication with phrasing, that's it. And when I found out that she played piano, I was like, oh, smack, dang. She could do everything, and she looks like me. And she was my role model.
So I love Camille Thurman. I met Camille Thurman it must have been 11 or 12 years ago. She came to Bethany Baptist Church in Newark, New Jersey, which I'm a member of. And she performed. At that time, she was in the band with the featured artist. At the time, the featured artist was Mimi Jones, who is also a very talented musician, instrumentalist. She plays the bass, and Mimi Jones also sings. So Camille was in the band with Mimi Jones. And Mimi performed a song where Camille was featured as the vocalist and saxophonist. And I was blown away by her voice. She had such a beautiful voice. And I was just like, wow, I couldn't believe how great her voice was. And I immediately, at the time, I had just started my job, my business, Magenta Jazz, and there was a event which featured women in business. And so I hired Camille Thurman. She was one of the first artists I hired to present on behalf of Magenta Jazz management. And I didn't manage her. I don't want to give that impression at all. But I certainly am a huge fan of hers. And we also have in common the fact that we played saxophone. I played tenor sax for like that long. But I was nowhere near as good as Camille, nowhere near. So I want to play a little bit of a video that's featuring Camille singing and playing the saxophone. So I'm going to do a little skipping around so we can hear both. It's kind of a long video, and I want to be wise with the time. So this is Camille Thurman with the Daryl Green Trio. She's performing Our Day Will Come. Our day will come.
We'll have everything. We will share the joy. Falling in love can bring no one can tell me that I love you so, and you love me. No, 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 all day will come. If we just wait a while, mountains rise. Think, love, and wear a smile. Our dreams have minded to share because we always stay in love this way. All day. Will come, will come, will come, will come.
And so lovely voice. And here she is on saxophone, on tenor. And here I am skipping again.
Our day will come, and we'll have everything. We will share the joy. Falling in love can bring no one can tell me that I'm not together. I love you so, can you love me? Oh, I'll say will come. If we just wait a while, no more tears come. Make love and wear a smile. Our dreams are magic to share because we always say, and love this way. Our day will come. No, our day. No, 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 our day. No, 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 our day, our day, our day. No, 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 our day. No, 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 our day. No, 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 our day. Oh, all day, 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 all day. Oh, no, 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 all day. Oh, all day. Will come out.
Great.
We love you.
So she is an
Wow.
outstanding vocalist, right?
Fabulous.
What a range, what great facility and execution. You can hear Sarah, you can hear Ella, you can hear Nancy Wilson, you hear all the greats in her voice. And it's almost like, and that's what we talk about whether we think jazz has a future or a future audience. And I used to be concerned, but then the more I listen to the talent that we have today, I'm not worried at all. I know that, you know, these young entertainers, and I say young because I think I have like 10 or 15 years on Camille and the other ladies who I'm featuring this afternoon. So I consider them young, you know, the younger generation, because they are. But anyway, just so we, a little housekeeping, because I know that the sound may be an issue, especially for those who are on the phone. So to make the sound transfer better, if you could mute your phones. I don't know if this was told, I mean, mute your like laptops or phones, so that there's no outside sound interfering with the videos. That might help a little. Is anyone, please let us know if you're having problems hearing. I've got my volume up as high as possible. But if it's distorted, let me know. I want to give you the best experience possible. All right, so that's Camille, okay? And now I want to introduce to you guys a young lady by the name of Veronica Swift. And when I hear her, I hear all of the 1920s and 30s, that old, you know, show tune, theatrical style that's so bright and upbeat and a little bit, you know, bubblegum pretty, you know, but she's also got a little grit with her. Veronica Swift was, I don't know what year she was born or how old she is, but she's like 26. And she's from a family, both her parents were jazz performers. Her father was a pianist, her mother a jazz vocalist. So she was exposed to a lot of some of the greatest musicians of the time, like Annie Ross and John Hendricks, Bob Jarreau, Paquita de Rivera, Marilyn May. She was able to, you know, cut her teeth on these people, their music, and just being able to be around them was a blessing for her. So she recorded her first album actually at the age of 9. So she's been in this for a while. And I'm going to also apologize a little side. Every now and then you won't hear the train. I live on Vos Avenue right in front of the train tracks. So forgive me. I've shut both my windows. I'm in here sweating, you know, because I'm hot with this radiator heat. But anyway, so please forgive the background noise. But anyway, she recorded her first album at age 9, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about her upbringing in music. And this is her performing Darn That Dream. And it's recorded in a restaurant, so you're going to hear a little ambient, you know, sound of people eating and low conversation, but her voice carries over that. And trust me, once you hear her, all the other noise won't distract you at all. This is Veronica Swift.
And I'm talking young, like 9 years old. That's when I started with my parents, who were both jazz musicians on the road and all that. You know, as a young person, there aren't that many tunes to learn, you know, in terms of love, so too young to know about that. But this was the first tune where I think I was a freshman in college, whereas I actually experienced something of the sort. So this is the first one of the tunes I did, Darn That Dream. Darn that dream I dream each night. You say you love me and you hold me tight. But when I awake, you're out of sight. Darn that dream. Darn your lips and darn your eyes. They lift me high above the moonlit skies. Then I tumble out of paradise. Down that one track, mind of mine, it can't understand that you just don't care. Once I change the mood I'm in, I welcome a nice old nightmare. Time that dream, and bless it too. Without that dream, I never would have you. But it haunts me, and it just won't come true.
So such a beautiful voice, such a beautiful command of her voice. And I also want to show her featured in a duet. So you hear a little bit of that Annie Ross influence in her vocalese. This is her performing Social Call with another popular up and coming rising vocalist. His name is Benny Bennick, and I may be mispronouncing his last name, so forgive me, but Benny Bennick the third, featuring Veronica Swift and Social Call. This also has Christian McBride on bass, Ulysses, oh gosh, the other famous drummer whose name escapes me right now. Ulysses is on drums, and another excellent pianist whose name escapes me, I'm sorry, but check them out, Social Call. It's such a cute version.
Happened to pass your doorway, gave you a buzz, that's all. Lately, I've thought lots about you, so I thought I'd pay a social call.
Do you recall the old days? We used to have a ball.
Not that I'm lonesome without you, I just thought I'd pay a social call.
I thought I'd say things are just swell, but to tell the truth, I haven't been so well. And if you should try to kiss me, I promise that I won't stall.
Maybe we'll get back together, starting from this incidental, elemental, simple social call. Do you remember all the good times that we had, my baby girl? I'll never forget, you've got the greatest smile in the world. Oh, my sugar plum fairy, don't hold a grudge. I simply had to say hello once more. And am I insane, or do I really see a world where you and I could be together forever? Wait, buttercup, don't slam the door in my face, unless you really want to spill my heart all over the place. Oh, I guess you're ready to spend a long time talking out like this. I'm trying to break my habit of you. But since we're back together, I suppose we should try to start anew. Dear, what do you say? Oh, I can't take it. My heart is breaking. I'm laying it on the line. If you can find it in your mind that there is just a little itsy bitsy chance that you might miss me, let's give it a whirl.
Baby, we've played this game 1,000 million times. I shall throw your heart in jail for all of its crimes. You say that you love me, and I think that it's true. But why should I just sit at home waiting for you? When we're together, it's always stormy weather, and I really feel
feel like sitting on a beach with you out of reach. Whenever you smirk, I get weak in the knees. But if you're a jerk, I'll tune out all of your pleas. Well, I suppose just one drink couldn't hurt, but just one, nothing more. I'm onto all of your tricks, but if you slip up, I'll show you the door. I must be crazy cause I'm coming around, but if you do me wrong, I'll run you out of this town. I guess that I could give you one more chance now to prove you're the man who can love me every day and never leave my side ever again. I promise I won't stall. Maybe we'll get back together, starting with this inside. Simple social call.
How awesome is that? Doesn't that make you just want to dance?
Oh, I loved it.
I love that. I think those two are awesome, and they love doing duets together. So you can usually catch them performing together sometimes. And speaking of performances, Veronica Swift has performed all over New York City: Birdland Jazz Club, Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola, Jazz Standard. She's been at San Francisco Jazz Collective. She's played, of course, she's performed with Jazz at Lincoln Center. So this, and she was the second place winner of the Thelonious Monk Jazz Vocal Competition in 2015. So she is really established and a very talented young lady, and I'm looking forward to seeing more and more from her. All right, so on to the next one, Brianna Thomas. I heard about Brianna Thomas. I've seen her in jam sessions when I moved to New York in 2002. I kind of kept my thumb on the pulse of entertainers and musicians, and going to jazz, jam sessions. So Brianna Thomas would be there, Miriam Sullivan, just all the vocalists who were, honing their skills in the early 2000s. I'm not sure about Brianna, but I feel like I met her and saw her around the scene in the mid, like 2010s or something like that. I'm not sure, I could be wrong. But I know her name came up again when Gail Boyd, the very popular and famous jazz manager, signed her. So she became a client of Gail Boyd, and so she became on everyone's radar now, and so she's doing a lot of great things. She's going to tell you a little bit about herself and how she got started in music and jazz. So this is a video featuring Brianna.
There's joy unknown in a mellow. You got me hoping, never moping when you know that I should cry. My name is Brianna Thomas. I'm from Peoria, Illinois. I live in New York City, and I'm a vocalist. I've been singing since I was 6 years old. If it weren't for the joy you bring to me, sweet and true, I pray that you'd never go away. My first memory of singing was just singing around the house. as a very young child. My father is a vocalist and drummer. I was surrounded by all kinds of music, and his band used to come and practice at the home. So I was right in the cut. Today and tomorrow and never a gift. I realize you're the one that I want to spend my life with. And I was heavily influenced by him. I'd say he's my first teacher and inspiration. He sang James Brown, Otis Redding, Temptations, Earth, Wind and Fire, Bonnie Raitt. He sang jazz standards in a mellow tone. I played in the jazz band at school. When I was 11 or 12, another teacher and mentor of mine, Mary Jo Papich, she heard me via my band director. I started singing with a big band when I was 12. She handed me some jazz music. She handed me a Natalie Cole CD and some Ella Fitzgerald CDs that it set me on the path towards where I am now. I got this Sarah Vaughan CD, and Sarah was singing Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, and I decided that I wanted to be able to sing jazz like that. I recently graduated last May from the New School for Jazz and Contemporary Music. I wanted to go to school to learn more theory and how to communicate the ideas that I had in my head. Since I've graduated, I've had the great fortune of working with several wonderful artists, Wes Warm Daddy Anderson and Wynton Marsalis. And I've had the great fortune to be able to perform at Dizzy's a week-long stretch after hours.
So I'm going to cut that a little short so we can get into the music that she's performing. This is a video of her performing live or in a studio, Bye Bye Blackbird.
It's your birthday, Mark. I'll give you a choice. We can do for you Bye Bye Blackbird, or we can do My Foolish Heart.
Oh, Bye Bye Blackbird.
Bye Bye Blackbird. Okay. Pack up all my cares and woes. Here I go singing low. Bye 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 blackbird. Where somebody waits for me, this sugar is sweet and so is he. Bye 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 blackbird. No one here can love or understand me. What hard luck stories they all hand me. I'm gonna make my bed and light the light. I'll arrive late tonight, blackbird. Bye 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 bye. Pack up all my cares and my woes. Here I go, I'm singing low. Bye 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 bye. Somebody waits for me, the sugar sweet and so is he. Bye 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 blackbird. No one here can love or understand me. What hard luck stories they will always hand me. I'm gonna make my bed, light the light, and I'll arrive late tonight. Blackbird, bye, bye, bye.
So I'm going to skip back to her singing, not to diminish the band because the band is awesome, but I want you guys to hear as much of Brianna as possible.
waits for me, sugar sweet, and so is he. Bye, 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 blackbird. No one here can love or understand me. Oh, what hard luck stories they always hand me. I'm gonna make my bed and light the light. I'll arrive late tonight. Blackbird, 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 blackbird. Blackbird, 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 blackbird. Blackbird, 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 blackbird. Happy birthday to you.
So it's the sound engineer or whoever this guy Mark is in the so she goes into a rendition of Happy Birthday for Mark on the set in the studio. So yeah, Brianna Thomas was phenomenal. Ben Ratliff of New York Times says Miss Thomas has a strong voice and a big range, descended from Sarah Vaughan and Betty Carter and routed through Diane Reeves with clarity and confidence and a little dirt. And I heard a little Dinah Washington in that too. I don't know if you guys did, but I heard a little, you know. But what do you think? Is she not phenomenal? They're all brilliant scat
They
singers.
all are. They all are.
I'm so excited. Okay, one more before we wrap up. Jasmia Horn. And Jasmia Horn has probably gotten the most attention of all these young ladies because she was nominated for Grammy Award. I can't remember. I think it was in 2015, 16, 17. Forgive me. But oh, there it is. 2018, A Social Call was her first album, and it earned her first Grammy nomination. And when she performed at the 60th Grammy Award ceremony in 2018 as well, and was met with much admiration from the audience. People knew her name after that. So Jasmia is going to tell you a little bit about herself in this video.
My name is Jasmia Horn. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I'm a jazz musician.
I don't know where my man is. Where can he be?
My grandfather is a pastor at a church back home. And when I was young, I was kind of forced to sing in the choir. My folks always said, you have to do something in the church, whether it's be on the usher board or be in the choir, or you had to do something. So I started singing, and that's where I started. And I had a teacher named Roger Boykin, and he had given me like this compilation CD of a bunch of different singers. And so I started listening and checking out people. And I was like, this is boring. I was like, this is boring. It wasn't what I was used to. I was used to gospel and soul and R&B, you know, pop music in that time. And I heard Sarah Vaughan. And then I was like, oh, this is it. This is where I want to go with my music. From that moment on, I started listening to jazz music. The new school sent me a letter and said, hey, we'll give you a scholarship if you come to our school. And I said, okay, well, it's the capital of jazz. Why not just go on to New York? So I moved here. I settled in right away. I was able to like play with really good musicians, old school and new school. From that point on, I started networking with different musicians, and that was something that really boosted my career. Sarah Vaughan was the first competition that I won. Not only was I the winner of the second competition that was held, but the first year they gave me an award called the Rising Star Award for that competition. I was still able to perform, but I wasn't able to compete. So then I took first place the following year. And then a couple of years later, the Lonnie's Monk competition, I didn't really think I was going to win that one because it's so prestigious. And there were a lot of great singers in that competition as well. I'm grateful having won both of those competitions, but I think there was a little bit of a difference in how this one created what it created for my career and vice versa. We recorded the album in New York. Some of the musicians that played on the project.
Can you make it louder?
Regularly. And we had a
Let me
great
see.
time in the studio. Chris Dunn, the
No,
producer,
Thank you.
sorry.
just great with the way he spoke.
Her voice is a little low. But she's just talking about the inspiration for her album Social Call and working with various musicians in New York and you know, shedding, you know, wood shedding and, you know, cutting her teeth in New York. This next one, hopefully you'll hear that better. This is her performing. She's doing a little bit of the same performance she did for the Grammys performance in 2018. This is from the Tavis Smiley show. And she's performing Lift Every Voice and Sing and going into Moaning. Art Blakey's Moaning. Is that better sound-wise?
Yes, thank you.
Every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling seas. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. In the morning find me moaning, 'cause of all the trouble I see. Life's a losing gamble to me. Cares and woes have got me moaning. Every evening find me moaning. I'm alone and crying the blues. Yeah, but I'm so tired of paying these dues. Everybody knows I'm moaning. Lord, I spend plenty of days and nights alone with my grief. But I pray, really and truly pray, somebody would come and bring me relief. I'm alone at home, I'm crying the blues. I'm so tired of paying these dues. Everybody knows I'm moaning.
So that's Jasmine Horn, and very popular with critics. And if you could see her, if for those who are on the phone, she's a very colorful character. Well, I hate to say character because that seems like I'm diminishing her, but very colorful personality, and also in her style of dress too. She's wearing like this bright yellow gold turban wrapped around her head. She's got African tribal dots above her brow and the bridge of her nose. She's got beautiful earrings. I think they're the Yeah, earrings and colorful Afrocentric dress that she's wearing. So, and that's what she performed in for the Grammy Awards. And Jasmia is more personality and charisma and her delivery and style of delivery is what really sells her. Her voice is beautiful, but she does tend to sing kind of like reminiscent of Betty Carter, or some people
Can
even.
you speak louder now too?
Sure. Let me bring it closer to me.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. I know we're having problems with sound, so it's totally fine. Is that better?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank
So
you.
I was just saying that I know that her some people don't like Betty Carter's voice. They feel like she sings a little out of tune, and some might say the same of Jasmia. I know the first time I heard her live, I was not as impressed as when I heard, the first time I heard her in person at the Tonic. I think it was called, yeah, Tonic in the city, Greenwich Village. Um, People were not that impressed. You could tell by the audience and some of the people in the club that they didn't think she was that great, and she could have been having an off night. But I guess what I'm trying to say is she seems to exude a lot of Betty Carter in her delivery and in her approach to singing, which I appreciate, and in her style too, which I also appreciate. So that's Jasmia. That's Brianna Thomas. I've introduced you to Veronica Swift and Camille Thurman, four lovely, lovely, lovely vocalists and instrumentalists. I forgot to mention that Brianna Thomas plays the piano and Veronica Swift plays the trumpet. And I'm pretty sure Jasmia plays the piano as well. Um, she went to New School. So very much, and they're all composers, songwriters, and phenomenal, talented young women, young divas. They've, like I said, they've really gotten a lot from these women that we see the our jazz divas of the heyday era of jazz: Sarah Vaughan, Betty Carter, Ella Fitzgerald, Anita O'Day, and they've taken, like I said before, the torch and they're carrying it forward, and they're still growing. They're only in their 20s and early 30s, late 20s, early 30s. So imagine where Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald were. They were phenomenal in their early 20s, in their 20s, but look at how much they grew as artists. Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald, Betty Clark. So, so I'm really expecting great things from these women because you see the trajectory, the path that the women before them led. There's only greatness for these women, and maybe one day someone will be delivering this same presentation, and they will be the four mothers of the jazz era. These women, Jasmia and Brianna and Veronica and Camille, and they'll be the ones paving the road for future generations to come. So again, I thank you all so much. Let's take a few moments if you have any questions.
I'd like to say something. What a delightful program. And it was so illuminating because I'll be honest with you, I never heard of these young vocalists. They were fabulous. The songs, it was so enjoyable and such an unexpected treat because I was, saying, oh, well, here, Ella and Sarah Vaughan. But these people, they really blew me off. I mean, they were absolutely wonderful, all of them. And you worked under the hardship of trying to get this all together. What a lot of time you put into it, but it was beautiful. And I thank you so much for giving us so much a beautiful, delightful day and also enriching our lives because now we know these other newcomers that are coming on the scene. So thank you.
I'm so happy. Thank you. Thank
you. Yeah. You were, unfortunately, because of the pandemic and you're not being able to show it in our, our little meeting room. It's a hardship what you did. It was really beautiful though. Who was your, out of all of them, who's your favorite?
Oh, that's tough. That's so tough. And it's hard because I love so much from each and every one of them. I'm gonna say because I know her and I feel like I understand where she's coming from, being the only female instrumentalist in a jazz big band for many decades. Well, not many decades, but many years. You know, when I was in high school, when I was in college. So I understand Camille Thurman's plight. You know, her, you know, what it was like to be one of few female musicians in a group of, you know, in an all boys club. And, you know, to face sexism, to face harassment, to face, you know, being talked down to. I understand what she's dealt with and where she's come from because I came from the same environment. And I applaud her because she persevered. She stayed going and building and growing. Whereas well, I'm not going to say I quit. I just decided I didn't want to play my instrument anymore because I felt like I had a better role to lead as an educator and speaker and aficionado. so, so yeah, I guess the answer, a long-winded answer is Camille Thurman is my favorite because she loves Sarah Vaughan. I love Sarah Vaughan. She is a tenor saxophonist. I'm a tenor saxophonist. Yeah, and I think she is a bright light.
There's other questions, I think.
Go ahead,
Michael?
Tracy, I see your hand up. Hey, Tracy.
Hi. You know, I really enjoyed your presentation today and listening to those wonderful young jazz singers. But I'm wondering a couple of things. When you go to jazz performances, is the audience a younger audience, a middle-aged audience, or an older audience? That's one question. And do you see people who are kind of popular on the non-jazz scene, kind of bridging listeners to jazz, like maybe Gregory Porter, you know, musicians like that? Do you see them kind of moving the general population closer and closer to jazz and jazz vocalists? I can't hear you.
Oh, me? Am I muted?
Now I can hear you.
Okay. To answer your first question, when I haven't been to many performances because we're in a pandemic, and even prior to the pandemic, I had curtailed my performance goings. But when I was going regularly, it depended on the venue, on the age of the audience. A lot of jam sessions, there'd be younger people in the audience because it was usually late at night, like 1 a.m., 12, you know, a.m. And you know, and they were students mostly in the audience. So the jam sessions, yes. But then when I go to Lincoln Center, jazz at Lincoln Center, and the concerts where you had to pay a lot for the tickets, you know, the audience would be a much older crowd, you know, 50 and plus. So I to answer your question, yeah. And the young people were either on the stage performing, or they had been invited for free, you know, at some type of, you know, sponsorship or partnership with a school or something. And that's why they would be in the audience. Now, the second part of your question is, are these popular non-jazz performers bridging the gap and bringing more would-be people who would not normally listen to jazz, bringing them more to jazz? I believe the answer is yes, absolutely. And not just people like Gregory Porter, but some hip hop artists, you know, and you know, some R&B and soul artists, you know, are using musicians like, what's his name? The saxophonist, Washington. Oh gosh, I forget his name. But anyway, you know, a lot of popular artists are using jazz musicians, like what Beyonce toured with, you know, a lot of jazz musicians in one of her tour shows, you know, Tia Fuller and all those women who played in her band. So that opened up a huge audience that normally wouldn't know about these musicians. Prince, I know Lee Hogan's is a great trumpet player who toured with Prince. He also toured with Puff Daddy or P Diddy or whatever he's going by today. So a lot of jazz musicians are touring with these popular artists, and that's kind of opening people, you know, the audience's ears to jazz also. So yeah, I hope that. I'm sorry, he cut out.
I don't think that was a question.
Oh, okay. I heard timeline and something about Wednesday, and I was like, okay. And are there any more questions or comments, or it's always so great to interact with you guys. I'm sorry we can't be in person, but I feel just as blessed, seeing those who are on camera and knowing that those who are on the phone are here as well. Anyone on phone have any comments? Oh, now I can see your names. I changed my screen. I see Sandra and Michelle. I
have a comment.
Oh, yes, Myra, go ahead.
Just that we have a lot of jazz around South Orange, and a lot of the audience has been older, but then, now I'm older. So it was so great hearing these wonderful young artists. It was thrilling. And I'm hoping that once that elusive once everything gets back to normal, we can feature more of them, because there's so much going on with jazz here locally, but some of the musicians involved are, at the later part of their careers. So, but this was just wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Myra. And I agree. I concur 100%. To program young artists is great. And I've always done it when I programmed them. When I created a concert series, I always wanted the talent that I curated, the talent that I brought in, I wanted them to reflect, several generations. I didn't feel like, I didn't want to curate a show where it was all young. Remember that young lion phase in the 80s, when everyone was talking about Wynton Marsalis, everyone was talking about, all of those cats, and they kind of overlooked a whole generation. I'm a Generation X person. So I feel like we're the middle children. We're stuck between the baby boomers and the millennials, and nobody cares about us. I always wanted to avoid that in programming and booking. So I didn't want to always shed light on the younger generations, because I knew that there were some older generations who did deserve the recognition as well. But I understand what you're saying, and I see in New Jersey specifically, and especially around Newark, where I lived for several years, there is such a strong allegiance to the people who are from that area and who have, rightly so, the performers who are of that area. And you could say the same for South Orange. They seem to leave just a small, tiny bit of room for, the younger performers who need, a spotlight now and then. So I just would like to see more. I agree, Myra. I would like to see more of, diversity in the generations, if that's a word. Generational diversity.
April, I think I get your point. I think in the chat I put, I think you got to alert people to Jazz House Kids and JPAC Jazz for for teens, and those two programs. And then I know there's some South Jersey doing the similar kind of thing. So yeah. I get your concern, but people should know there are lots of, even your high schools.
Yes,
Columbia High
absolutely.
School and all the rest of them have amazing jazz.
Absolutely. Debbie, right? Is it
Yes.
Debbie? I agree 100%, Debbie. I forgot all about, you're absolutely right. There's jazz for kids. You know, NJPAC has the jazz teens program. There's Arts High School that always pumps out a lot of great talent. Look at all the talent that's coming from, you know, Maplewood, Columbia, right down the street from us, you know? So yes, absolutely. There are vehicles that do champion these young talents. I think though, what I'm thinking more about when I say booking and programming, I mean that programming that pays. You know, a lot of times the young talent.
Unlike this one.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not. This is for my joy. I wouldn't even want to get
our
paid for this.
joy.
Yeah, I wouldn't even want to get paid for this, or you know, this is feeding me.
I could.
But no, the talent, you know, the bookings are the opportunities that pay, you know, to me are what's really important, because, you know, as someone that was involved in booking, a lot of times people didn't want to pay the younger artists. They said this would be great exposure. But, you know, I think if they're going to be treated like professionals and asked to perform an entire set, you know, pay them, you know. But yeah, Debbie, I agree. And thank God for Michelle Walker and what she's doing. No, Melissa Walker, I'm sorry, what she's doing with Jazz House. And everyone else. There's just so many great organizations.
Okay. You will come back in the summer or the fall. And I don't care what you talk about. You are delightful, charming, and so intelligent. And you have shared so much insight into the world of music that we are not familiar with. I have to be honest with you. All these singers I did not know, and I loved them all. I love Social Call. I'm sorry that not everyone could see that. The two of them, they looked like they really were speaking to one another. They probably were in two different studios.
Yeah, they were in two different sound booths, but I think they could see each other, and it was so cute watching them interact to each other.
It was.
You know, he hit a note at one point. He was like, "Ah!" and she like did like this. Like she was so shocked that he hit that note. She was totally not expecting it. But they are too cute. I love that performance as well. When I heard it the first time, I listened to it over and over and over again.
I could see myself, listening to it. I loved them all. And I love you, April. You were so kind and filling in and giving us such a fabulous program. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you all, and have a
good week. Be safe and healthy and happy.
Thank you.